On today's episode of Crooked Mustache, we're doing a complete front-end refresh with Chinesium from Amazon. Stay tuned. So as I mentioned, we're going to be doing a complete refresh. Now, I've done this sort of thing on one of my other cars on Lazarus, and that was done with stuff I ordered directly from ECS Tuning, genuine OEM quality parts. I decided, since this isn't my car, we'll give it a shot to some Amazon parts, and actually it turned out to be quite significantly cheaper. So give me a second, I'm going to get everything out on the table and we can look over it. So now you're able to see the whole thing. So this kit includes both of the pieces that form the lower A-arm. Of course, Audi has to do everything differently. So this is your bottom A-arm. These two pieces form your upper A-arm, and they attach really separately. It's actually quite tedious. If this is anything like the B5 S4 or the A6 or the C5 A6 that we have, the bolts on these might require cutting off and then looping in from a different direction. I'm hoping that this one I don't have to do that. But the kit's pretty cool. It includes new drop links or sway bar end links, new tie rods, and all new hardware for everything. Just jumbled into a massive bag. So we'll get this sorted out as we go into it. The first thing we're going to do is jack up the front of the car, get the wheels off, and we're going to start basically slowly just dismembering this, disassembling it. I'm going to start on the driver's side. Really doesn't matter which one you start on. Just make sure that you have your car jacked up and secure on jack stands. Never work under a jack, even though I know that if you guys go through some of my older videos, you'll see that I did do it. Don't be like me. Work safely. So I'm going to do exactly what I said earlier. I'm going to jack the car up and we're going to start. So, front suspension refresh how-to on a B6 A4. There you go. Alright. What are you guys waiting for? Let's go. The trigger and bought a 1/2-inch gun that should make quite a lot of work easier. The least of which is literally just taking a wheel off. Oh my god, life is sweet. Oh, this is awesome. Might actually have to be careful with this thing. All right. There we go. We got that one. Wow. Touch from my own hand, anything to carry down just to burn things to the ground. Damn, that was awesome. Oh. You'd almost imagine that I like putting myself through hell. So really quickly, I wanted to be able to point out the differences. So here you can see this is the same arm that we're going to be replacing, and you can see here, I might have to brighten up the screen, but you can see here that it's solid all the way around. It's got the reliefs that are cut in it. I don't know if that's for sound or if it may be for like some slight comfort, but you can see on this one, which is the used part, there you can see the failure point, and this is on the upper control arm. Another thing worth noting, having the whole piece off, is that remember that it's not a true ball joint. I mean, it is a ball joint, but it's not considered a ball joint in the sense of your typical car that has one separate lower and one separate upper. You've got two here, and you can see that this, I mean, it's taking almost no effort to move it. There's probably very little grease left in there. This is the other one. You can see it takes literally finger strength. I'm not even moving my arm, that's just my fingers. Versus the new ones, much stiffer. So I'm actually going to go ahead and replace these on here. Remember that we can't tighten the bolts down fully until it's on the car and loaded under weight, but we can go ahead and replace these. I showed you guys in the video earlier, and that was this little pinhole here that had that threaded bolt that was coming from the actual inner metal fender, and it's just a threaded bolt. It doesn't even have a nut on it. It's like one of those washers that threads on, and that's what was causing all the trouble to hold this thing on once the three main bolts had been removed and I had taken off the lower strut bolt. So let's get in here. We're going to take these off. The upper units are ready. What we're going to do is go back to the car and replace the lower units. So let's go. Okay. All right, that one's out. Now we can focus on this one. That nut is holding on till the final. Ugh. Oh, there we go. Let's see. It is the same problem as the B5, but let's see if there's any room to play. Since this is a plastic cover, if we can take this off. Alright, here, let me actually show you guys what I'm talking about. So the bolt won't come out any further, but unlike in the B5s and the C5, and unlike in the B5 S4, A4, and the C5 A6, this is plastic, whereas in those cars it's metal. So I'm going to try not to cut that bolt. So let's see if we can take this off. Yep, with this off, there is room to pull the bolt out. Where did she come from? So right now, this is where we stand with that much of the suspension missing, pretty much the entire strut. There we go. And that's because the rest of it is over here on the workbench. We've got the two new components for the upper control arm. We haven't put on the bottom since the bottom goes on over there. Here's the old one with the 034 Motorsport end links that we're going to swap back onto the new ones. Since those are just fine. Those actually have metal bushing, so there's no point in swapping them out for these used cheapos. So that's going to swap over to the new piece. The only thing is now that because of the way we decided to do this, that bolt is out, but now this one, which is what that wrench is on, we can't put any torque on it. So we're going to have to reassemble most of the rest of the suspension in order to give us torque for that. Actually, I think maybe just the bottom piece on the other side would be fine, and that kind of sucks because, no, I can actually show you guys that piece anyway, so that might actually work. So what we'll do is we'll actually put the piece back on the other side, and then that's how we'll get the entire assembly back on. So now the good thing is that in terms of the front half of the A-arms, they're interchangeable left to right, which means that the left and right don't matter, so I can go ahead and swap these over just as they are. So you can see there, that is completely shot. Alright. Oh, is it back? Nope, it's gone. There we go. Wow. It recovered. Okay, so we've got that to loosen. We've got this to loosen. So let's get these closer. Is this a 15 instead of a 16? Nope, it's a 15. Not a 16. Yo, Theo, what the hell did this guy torque this down with? Alright, well. Yep, we're just gonna hit that thing on the back. So I didn't know that this car had these upgraded sway bar end links. So I thought I had put it on backwards, but apparently I did actually put it on correctly. I'll use this part, I'll use the other side of this part to show you guys a comparison. But from what it looks like on this one off the top doesn't look too bad, but that's probably because the back one, which you guys will see in a minute when we take it off, is the one that took the brunt of all of the wear. Because if you think about it, the rear one is the one that takes most hits every time you hit a speed bump, a pothole, any sort of like sudden deflection in the road. It goes to the load transfers to that one, which is why the rear bushing is so much larger than the front. Right now what we're using it for is to use as torque so that we can take the other one off, so that this gives it this. So right now if we were to torque on the other bolt, the whole assembly is going to want to twist this way. This will stop it doing that by having this in place. So I've just got this nut tightened down. There we go. Just to give us some resistance so I can put torque on the other side. Alright, so that you guys can actually see the bolt that I'm talking about. It's there. So the rear of the two-piece control arms, the one that sits further back on the car, that one mounts from the bottom up, whereas the one in the front mounts from the top down. The difficulty in getting this one out is that you got to do it with a wrench. The other one you can get to with an impact gun from underneath, but this one you either need a very, very interesting way of offsetting the torque gun if you wanted to use the impact gun, or you're going to need to do it with a wrench. And this one was easy enough to do with a wrench, unless you want to take the axle out, and that's more work than you really need to do to get this job done. I forgot. So yeah, this also has the downside of if you loosen the nut up too much with a closed wrench, you won't be able to get it off. The wrench, I mean. I'm having to tighten it back on now. My worry was that the ball joint was actually spinning in the hole, but it looks like it wasn't. Alright, so we can now come pull this bolt back out. Alright. Let's see. It's not hanging down low enough for this to be of any use.
One eternity later.
And we got it off with minimal damage. We can get rid of those, and now with that set aside, we can take a look at the old ones. So right off the bat, you guys can see that the old one, the tie rod ends, ball joints, whatever the hell this thing is, they're super worn. There's no rigidity in them at all. But here you can see this bushing. Here we go. If I do it from this side, maybe it'll be easier. And there you go. There's where this one started to fail. But the one that has truly caused the car to feel like it's not running correctly is the rear one. As you can see, there's a lot of flex. And you can see how the mount itself is starting to layer, and there's chunks missing. And if we flip to the other side, you can see just how loose this thing is. And keep in mind, that's a lot of force that gets applied on these A-arms. So here's a new one. It's taking, just to get a tiny bit of flex, it's taking a hell of a lot of force. And this is the cheap height. So this is ready to go back on, replace the other one, and we can start reassembling the entire suspension. Fishing the bolts through took a minute, but it was pretty much as straightforward as you can imagine. Taking them off is the harder part. So remember that you've got the plastic cover that's over here that you bend over, and that lets you put this bolt through. So this bolt has no nut on it, and the bolt for the front control arm has no nut on it yet. So we're going to put those nuts in first. We can't torque those down yet, but we can put them in. Alright, time to bring in the big gun, or I should say the top gun. So now comes the challenge of slipping this entire unit back in. is on the car. What we have left to do is torque the hardware where it attaches to the frame. So that's for the front lower control arm, the rear lower control arm, the upper front control arm, and the upper rear control arm. All of those have to be tensioned and torqued under load, otherwise you'll rip the bushings, because the moment you torque them with the suspension drooped and the car sits down, the amount of play that the bushing could have for typical movement, you're going to make it all up and then some, and you'll tear the bushing the moment you put the car down. So we have to torque everything up. What I'm going to do is torque the last few things that we can do that won't be affected, which is the ball joints where they attach to the lower spindle. I've already got the hardware installed up top. I'm going to go ahead and tighten all of that down. That have to be torqued under load are the two for the control arms on the bottom, and the two for the control arms on the top. Those have to be torqued under load. So there we go. All right, the face tracking is working pretty well. Hopefully as I'm doing this, I'm coming up with the correct order for you guys to do this in, so that it doesn't take you 7 hours to do one. I'm gonna set you guys back on the tripod and we can move forward. All right. ¿Sabes, Benito? Yes, sorry, Bob. It actually should be all done. What's up? Wait, I mean, I don't like leaving loose nuts. Oh, dude! Look at it! Look at it! Nice. Very nice. It's got 3 volts! Well, I feel like I'm very poorly lit, but the garage looks much better. So thanks to the gun, I'll be able to put my wheel back on here. I'm gonna have to figure out, there we go. Okay, so I'm still getting used to the face tracking. So now that we've completed the driver's side, passenger side and driver's side are exactly the same when you're doing the front suspension. When you're doing this kind of thing, the hardware is the same. The reason I wanted to kind of muscle through the first one is so that way I can give the recommendations on how you should do the actual setup, so that hopefully you don't fall into the same trap I did, which was, oh, I'll take the tops off first and then I'll start on the bottom, which left me with the rear control arm. All right, so now with that, I'm gonna set up the camera and we're going to put the wheel back on, get the car down on the ground, and we're gonna move on to the passenger side, which should be a lot faster since now I have an idea of what to get done. Okay, take 2. So we finished everything. The sad part is time will only tell if this was a good decision, if this was a bad decision. I'm not a metallurgical expert. I don't truly know if this is some different form of steel than the ones that were on it before. They are some form of steel. There is carbon in there because it's magnetic. Who knows? Longevity, as far as the bushing, same thing. Longevity is going to tell us exactly whether this was a steal or whether it was just a waste of time. The installation was totally fine. I actually didn't even know I had 034 Motorsport sway bar end links. That's the dogs in the background. So guys, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and don't forget to hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming future videos. Once again, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. If you guys make it to the end of the videos, that's awesome. And as always, thank you for watching. For Crooked Mustache, I'm Alfred. We'll see you next time. Dale.